Hey everyone, welcome to the Lost in Life podcast. This is Keshav and I'm here with Dina Mistry, also known as the Playful Indian on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us, first of all.
No, thank you for inviting me.
And I was just about to say to you, just as we got started there, the first time I found your stuff, I was at the South Bank Centre and I saw one of your coasters and it said, "You're the samosa to my chutney." So to give everyone who's listening a brief introduction as to who you are, and I guess like why should they listen to you? Why should they care? So Dina runs an amazing Instagram, which if you're not following already is at the Playful Indian. She's also on all the other platforms, I think. So definitely go and find her stuff. And she creates, I want to do justice to this. So like really cool, funny, inspirational greeting cards and gifts with a South Asian flavor. Am I on the money with that introduction?
Yeah, I just say they're a bit silly like me.
I guess like one of the things that stands out for me about what you do and why I wanted to have you on the podcast and speak to you was you're not only running your own business, but you're doing it in a way that's very fun, very cool. It always, like every post, everything you share, it never comes across as like salesy. It's always with that spirit of playfulness and fun. And I know actually you weren't always called the Playful Indian, were you?
No, it used to be Wild Clove. It's kind of cringe now.
but that, yeah, I mean,
one of those things that what's Asian and what goes together, and it wasn't really me.
Yeah. So I want to come back to that later on in our conversation today. But for everyone listening, definitely go and follow her stuff, because not only is she sharing something that is unique and different, but also, you have inspirational content on there and cool quotes and things like that. And I think you're almost like a soft social enterprise in the sense that you're empowering people, you're putting something, a message out there, and it clearly stands for something. And one of the things that I want to help people do that are listening is to find their own path based on their own intuitions and ideas. And I think in order to be remarkable, especially in a creative space, you kind of need to like shut off. You need to know what's going on and see what works, but also like come from your own place of creativity. So I guess that's where I wanted to start, is like, how have you gone about developing your brand, quote unquote, and what's your kind of approach to making it really distinct? Because I'm really interested in this conversation about how do we become remarkable. And I think a lot of that is like don't be a copycat, basically, and do your own thing in it. But tell us about that journey and tell us like how you go about approaching this and the spirit that it comes from.
Well, I started through Prince's Trust. So they helped me set up. It was
and for anyone who doesn't know who they are, if you could also explain what the Prince's Trust is. They
help young people set up their own businesses. They do a whole lot of like work experience stuff as well, provide courses, like social media seminars and workshops and things. So everything to help you set up funding and having a mentor, which I think is super important. So they do all that. And then I just approached them because I lost my job. And I was like, what do I do? And I've always wanted to do more illustration. I was working in graphic design at the time, but I wanted to work on more illustration stuff. And I've always had an interest in keeping kind of the culture alive. It's who I am, it's who my parents are. It's part of me. So it's just like combining it in a fun way and in a modern way. And there was nothing around that was, greeting cards, like Diwali cards and things. They're all quite, to me, old-fashioned. And I just wanted to kind of involve the younger community and say, this is us. We can be fun. We can be modern. So that was my idea. So I approached Prince's Trust and they helped me set up. And as we spoke about before, it was initially set up as Wild Clove. But a lot of my followers still remember me as Wild Clove, which I don't know why. But yeah, that's basically how I started, just through Prince's Trust and doing markets through them. And this was based in Leicester at the time. So yeah, the idea was there, but it was a lot of things I was doing. I was trying out lots of different things. It wasn't just the Asian cards and gifts. Yeah. It was knitting and making clay products, and I don't know, it was just loads of stuff, like what can I do next? And
it's really interesting because I guess two questions that come up for me, and the first one is, and I had this written down beforehand, because the title of this podcast is the Lost in Life podcast, because lots of us feel like a lack of clarity. We feel lost, confused, stuck for whatever reason at different points in our lives, whether it's we're not in the right job, we're not in the right relationship, we're getting over a breakup, or we're just not sure what to do after university, or even like being a 44-year-old with kids, you still might feel, what am I doing in my life? So that moment where you lost your job, I'd love to hear a bit more about that and what that moment was like for you. And the question I had written down here is it normal to feel lost?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody will feel lost at some point. You know, it's part of life, and I think it's one of those things that takes you in either a learning direction, kind of you've got to go through some possibly bad stuff or hard stuff to learn something. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, feeling lost it can mean different things, like being lonely or not knowing where you want to go in life in terms of your job. You know, like you said, for different ages, it depends what age you are and what situation you are in at the time.
And what was the thing that, because I think clarity is such a powerful thing, and I think that definitely comes across with the stuff you're doing. You said, yeah, at the beginning I was trying to do too many different things. What helped you to narrow it down and to really focus on one thing and going in the direction you're in now?
Having a mentor.
Yeah, tell us more about
that. So basically, the mentor that they provide is somebody who's already runs a business through Prince's Trust. So they already run a business, and they just kind of come in. You meet up once a month to kind of go through your business, what your ideas are, and they don't necessarily tell you what to do. It'll be advising you and telling you, how are you going to do that? Why are you going to do that? How is it going to help your business? Those kind of questions. And the moment for me is when I sat down with him and I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, which was my plan in the first place anyway. But I think I needed an area to focus on. I was doing cards for different people, different ages. It was like I was doing the Asian cards, and then I was doing the cards for like Christmas and things like that. And to me, it didn't go, even though you could have Asian Christmas cards. It's, you know, people do that. But for me, it didn't feel right. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, I know I've done this in the past where I might have taken a step because I know that's what I think is going to get me a step forward, or like is going to work, but it's not necessarily what feels right. And, you know, even this year discussing like my own strategy for social media, I was saying to my mentor, like, I just feel really overwhelmed doing Instagram, Facebook, social, like all the social platforms, making videos for each one, doing quotes on Instagram, doing emails. Like, it's too much. and it almost got to the point where I was like, can I not just make like my YouTube videos? Because that's what I've done and that's what's worked for me, right? And he was like, yeah, just focus on one thing. And I think, why do you think it is that so many people are, that I think we definitely have this like fear of missing out in our culture. Like there's so many, like social media is a good example. If you're running a business, Instagram is great. You can get a lot of growth there. Facebook is great. You can get a lot of growth there. You got things like Musical.ly coming out now and other new platforms. Sorry, TikTok. What's your advice to people who are where you were in terms of narrowing things down and knowing like how to really trust that? Because I think it's, at some level, it's also like quite a courageous thing to do.
I think it's a gut feeling. For me, it was a gut feeling. Like,
can you remember the moment where you thought, yeah, like, I just need to focus on samosas forever? And like, you know,
I wish I could do that. Just samosas, everything samosas. I could probably do that, you know. Let's make a samosa page.
yeah.
But no, it was sat down with my mentor and just going through kind of sales and markets that I'd done already. And even though I'd sold, you know, quite a few of the other bit, I didn't feel it in, you know, my insides was just like, no. It's hard to explain that moment when you think, you know what, this is a direction I have to go in. But it's something, I think, because it was important to me as well, in terms of I wanted to make a difference and I wanted people to kind of enjoy modern Asian cards and have the opportunity to, like, you know, still keep in with culture and who you are. I think that's important.
You mentioned culture a couple of times. What's so important about it, and why does it mean so much for you?
I think because, okay, when I was younger, in my younger days, it's one of those things where I didn't feel like I quite fit in anywhere. Like, obviously you have your crowd, you have your Asian crowd, you have your, you know, your white crowd and your different races and whatever. You have your bad crowd, your good crowd and whatever. And it was just one of those things that I didn't feel like I wasn't a bad person, I wasn't a good person. And I didn't want to hang around with just Asian people because I wanted to learn about what other cultures were doing. And say like when I went to uni, I hung around with a lot of Chinese people or Greek people. And I think it's just nice to be surrounded by different kinds of people to learn to better yourself. But I wanted them to learn about me and who I was. And I think the only way, you can't do that when you're just surrounded by the same kind of people. I think you need to learn and then share.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So where does that desire to bring culture into your business and into the cards, like, where does that come from? What are you hoping to achieve?
Just put smiles on people's faces.
I love it. And I think that's a really good lesson as well. Like, it doesn't have to be mad complicated.
No, I think it can be fun. I hope I'm doing something good and helping people. Like when people are feeling down, I hope, you know, they see one of my pictures or posts on my page and just makes them smile. It's just that little thing that, you know, everything's okay.
And I, like, when you took that step from, you know, the wild clove, sorry, is it the wild clove? Yeah, wild clove days. And I hate it when I end up with one of those in my Shakrotli. Because it's like, I always end up with that or the ilaiji. Like, it's always me that ends up getting it. But when you made that switch, and I assume you're quite early on, you started this business, you're kind of tentatively figuring stuff out. What was the response like, and what were the things that told you, yeah, this is the direction I need to go in, and this is what I want to double down, other than that feeling of this is what feels right? Or is that predominantly it? It
was the focus on what I wanted to do was a gut feeling. And then it was more so sitting down and figuring out what I wanted my brand to represent. And that's where I thought I want it to represent me, my love of food, positivity, and just being playful and fun and a bit quirky and silly, and it's okay.
I think, like that's why I really like the stuff that you do. I'm definitely going to go buy like a bunch of your cards. Everyone who's listening as well, like, where can they find your stuff, by the way?
They can find me on theplayfulindian.com. So that has quite a big range, actually, of all my stuff. And there's new stuff coming as well, which I'm going to work on tomorrow. I have an Etsy shop as well for people.
That's why you've got like 408 reviews. That is a lot of you're putting in the graft.
I am. Etsy shop, Society 6 shop as well, which doesn't have a load of things on there, but it's better for hoodies and t-shirts, homewares, things like that.
So definitely go check out and buy everything in her shop. Hopefully we can make us like an extra 6 figures overnight. But like I was saying, that really comes across, that playfulness. And I think when I'm really careful with Instagram these days, because like I've uninstalled it from my phone. I only use it very like purposefully, because you can very easily find yourself scrolling away, and then you've lost like half an hour and you're like, whose page am I even looking at right now? Like, who the and one of the things I remember you posting about was like copyright and people sharing stuff. So I'd love to hear like what happened. I'd love you to share some of those things, but also some of the lessons that you'd like to share with people about like sharing posts on Instagram and what's worked for you, and some of those things where you've had people sharing without permission as well.
Okay, now I don't have an issue with people sharing. I'd love for them to share my stuff, and if it makes somebody smile, share it. That's fine. I don't have a problem. But just please credit the artist, that anybody whose work you're sharing. It's quite disheartening, and I felt quite down about it last couple of days, because I found out there's quite a few other people that are either selling stuff that I've created. It's not a nice feeling. Especially I'm working a full-time job as well, and then I'm packing all my orders in the evening.
So let me get this straight. You're working like 9 to 5 and then 5 to 9.
I work full-time as well.
Yeah. And what do you do in your full-time job?
A graphic designer. Okay. And it's packaging for a car accessories company.
Okay.
So it's still kind of the same line of work, but it's more structured. I'd say graphic design is more structured, whereas illustration, I get to do my own little thing. But about the copyright and things, it's really disheartening when people sell your work that you've created or change it and put their website on it, and then think it's okay to buy a load of cards and replicate it and blow them up, put their website on it, and it's just not nice when you're not even getting credited for it. And I'm not earning loads. I work hard for what I do. It's people think there's a team behind the Playful Indian, but you know what, it's just me.
Yeah, it's like me and Ba in the corner.
Me and my cats. So it's just not nice, and it really gets you down.
And I think entrepreneurship is quite a roller coaster ride, to say the least, especially when you're doing it on your own from home or whatever. What do you find, like, what are some of the things that help you when you do have those down days, that can help you to keep moving forward? Because you're clearly persistent. You've been doing this since like 2013 and beyond. So,
makes me feel old. That. Do you know what? It's just one of those things that you have to carry on. To me, it's like, I can do better. People who copy will only get so far. And that's what I've always got in the back of my mind. They'll never be able to create things that are the same. So it's about being one step ahead and creating new things, different things.
And what's your advice to people, artists on Instagram that are posting like original content? I mean, I know what you're talking about. YouTube recently released a feature where they actually scan for your videos on, and this reminds me, I need to check it again, but they scan for your videos on other channels, and I found out like 20 or 30 of my videos had just been literally downloaded, butchered, and re-uploaded elsewhere, and like people hadn't even taken like the little graphics off and stuff like that. And it is a terrible feeling, because I can remember, oh yeah, I stayed up like all night to edit that video, or I stayed outside in the cold for 2 hours to record that one, and then the battery stopped working. And there's all these little behind the scenes moments that people don't know about. And that's partly why I wanted to create this podcast for my YouTube audience, so that they can get to know like the good, bad, and ugly of the whole journey, and really get to know like what it's like doing stuff like this, but also that it's normal to have days where you feel lost. So it's normal to feel stressed and all these things, but these are ways that different people like yourself are managing it. But yeah, to come back to Instagram, because I love your Instagram, and I think you're doing Instagram like perfectly. What are your top tips, your top 2 tips, in fact, for people who want to do their thing on Instagram? As an artist myself, like I hate in my niche when, like people just copy the good quote and like put their name on it, and they got like 10 followers, and like you're not allowed to quote yourself. You've got 5 people following you.
Come on now, I think I could come out with some good one-liners that I could quote.
Yeah, you could, but you have like 5,000 people who are interested, you know. But what do you think creates a good visual post on Instagram? And what have been the top 2 things that have helped you to grow your profile on that platform specifically?
I'd say number 1 is make it you. So mine is, as you could probably see, it's quite colourful and bright, and yeah, so that's one of my things. I like to keep it that way. So, and that's part of my brand. It's part of me being me, and not. I don't know, when I come across a feed that's bright and colourful, I want to see what else they have to offer. Yeah. And I do try not to make it, salesy, although sometimes I feel like that's all I post is like products. But sometimes they have a story behind them.
No, I mean, from my experience, it never comes across as salesy. And actually, if you're listening, like, give us some feedback. Go take a look at the Playful Indian on Instagram. Share your favorite post and tell us, like, what do you think of the feed? Let's get some feedback as well. Definitely. But I really love your stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first one you said was make it you. So in your case, you've got bright colors, you've got little stories in the captions, things like that to kind of make that come across.
Yeah. Second one is plan.
Okay.
Plan ahead. I mean, I'll try and do the odd, ad hoc post if I'm not, it's one of them things that, because I work full time as well, and having to kind of juggle everything, it made it easier to just plan what my posts were, what I wanted to focus on that week, if there's occasions and things like that, promote those.
And
so yeah, just plan.
when you're doing your planning, what kind of things do you schedule your posts? If so, you're using like a software for that, or is it just on this day I want to post this art that I've made, or how does it work?
No, well, Mondays kind of are my kind of motivational post to get the week started. I know I don't mind Mondays. I quite like Mondays because I'm really busy at work, so my day goes super quick. So I tend to post in the morning, and then one in the afternoon, every afternoon. There's no set kind of plan of what I'm going to post. It depends if there's like occasions coming or something's going on that week that I'm doing, such as if I'm doing an event somewhere, or if there's one of those national days, we love those.
Yeah. I saw the Circle of Life pizza post today. Like,
Love pizza.
I love that.
So yeah, it just depends. And I did used to do stories, which I want to start doing more of. And I think people used to enjoy them. I hope they did. I think they were just a bit more laid back.
I'm going to sound like a super fanboy because I am, but I've like anything you post on like automatic, like if it's a story, I'm like, yeah, let's see what's going on there. But I think actually that probably speaks about the power of like your story. I felt like I kind of knew a bit of you before I spoke to you even today. And that shows that authenticity is really coming across.
Well, when I wasn't working full time, I used to do quite a few stories. They were probably just stupid, really, but I think it helps to know the person behind the brand as well. So yeah, I want to start doing more of those. They'll probably be like, I'm tired.
Well, maybe we can see that. Who do you love to follow as well is the other question I wanted to ask you. Like, I've seen quite a few cool accounts that I follow following you, but yeah, who are the people that you like following and the accounts that you want to show?
There's loads of people that I follow that I don't know. They're just different. There's a lot of Asian artists. Like we talked about Helena Tattoos earlier.
Yeah, she's coming on the podcast soon.
So yeah, she's like, I just want to be her.
Yeah, she's awesome. So if everyone who's listening, Helena's a tattoo artist from Leicester, and she's breaking all kinds of stereotypes and just posting like all kinds of cool artwork and tattoos and stuff. And I actually was talking to her about stories as well and saying, because I remember she did like a little rant about cultural appropriation and when it's okay to use the tattoos that she's designed if you're not from like how do all these things work? Because I think the other thing is like we're living in this time where and I feel it too, you kind of feel a little bit afraid sometimes maybe to ask a question in case you say the wrong thing or you come across in the wrong way. And you might have the right intention, but if you're not I think empathetic probably is the right word. Who knows? And yeah, she did a whole thing about going through that, and that was really educational. But yeah, I love seeing stuff like that on Instagram where it's really original, cool stuff about like tattoos or greeting cards, but then there's like a message behind it or something else intertwined. Because we can learn so much from these platforms, like there's so much attention there. I'm just actually looking at the people I follow that follow you. Like the Sorry Not Sorry project, the Other Box, Brown Girl Magazine, Burnt Roti, Pink Ladu.
Pink Ladu, I think, are amazing. I think what they are doing is just I can't describe in words, but some of their posts, it's just really got me, and I can't understand in my head how some people can still think of having a boy is better than a girl and all that, and it just makes me want to cry sometimes reading some of their stories, and it's heartbreaking.
So for those of you who are listening, we're talking about Pink Ladu on Instagram. They share inspiring I'm going to read in their bio, inspiring South Asians to dismantle patriarchy by ditching sexist customs and celebrating girls' births. So yeah, definitely go check that out, educate yourselves, find out more about what they're doing as well. So that's awesome to hear. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know you have your own notes, so if there's stuff you want to bring into the conversation, like just dash it in
I think my notes have gone out the window
now. So you mentioned you got this full-time job and then you're doing this in evenings and weekends.
Again.
How the Luddu do you balance things and stay consistent and productive? Like, do you have days where you're not motivated to make art?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
how do you
That's
keep
like whole of
going?
last week and the week before.
So yeah, how do you balance having a full-time job and then running this stuff, and what's helped you to stay consistent?
Wouldn't really say I was consistent. This is what this deceiving thing about social media is. But I think that's why I want to do more behind the scenes, is because even though I do have to come home and pack orders, because that's my customers, and I like to, make them happy. They're like, if I can send an order out early, I will do that. And that's the best thing about small businesses, is they will take that extra care and attention to pack orders and deal with requests and things like that. But it's not really been consistent. It's just when I feel like working, I will work. But there's always little things going on. Like this is my notebook. I also have loads of Post-it notes that when I get an idea, it will just get jotted down, and then I'll probably at some point, usually the weekend is when I try and do most of my illustrating. But even though I might not be physically working on things, in the back of my mind, there'll always be, I need to do this and I need to do that. And there'll be a list going on of things that I need to do, or maybe ideas or people I need to contact. But yeah, I think it's hard to kind of constantly work physically and be drawing and, planning and updating websites, social media, things like that.
Do you, with your like creative ideas, what do you find works best for you? Like in terms of coming up with ideas and things to illustrate?
I don't know. Because food. I just love food. I just go and eat something. I'd be like, oh yeah, I could do this.
So actually, let's take a look at one of your posts. Maybe that will help. So, today's post, the circle of life, picture of a pizza. Like, how would the process work for that? So you decided, okay, on the 9th of February is National Pizza Day, and then from there, what happens? Like, how do you normally tend to work, or is it quite random?
Sometimes it's random. This one was a random one because it's Friday night is usually pizza night, so it messed with my schedule. Yeah, this one was just a kind of quick, let me do something different on the grid rather than seeing the same kind of samosa stuff or, whatever. It's nice to kind of join in with the crowd, if you can say, and do something that will bring more people together. And I think food is always one thing that does bring people together.
Oh man, totally, especially like samosas. That infamous illustration, the chutney and samosa one. How did that come about?
You know what? That was my very first illustration when I started the business. So that one, and that's the one that always gets stolen, and that's why I think it's always emotional for me.
Yeah. So is there nothing that you can do about that, or is there something in hindsight you wish you'd done?
No, there is. All the designs are copyrighted, so people shouldn't be just reusing them as and when without crediting. But yeah, there's stuff going on, and I've had meetings. But yeah,
what advice do you have to artists that are sharing stuff, especially visual illustrations, in order to protect their work?
I'd say if you can reach out to them, and a lot of the time they will either not know where it's come from because somebody's cropped out your watermark or where your name is and things like that. And I don't always like putting a logo on there because I don't think it's nice visually. But now I have to do it and I don't like it. Right across the middle of a picture or something. But I'd say just try and reach out to the person. I usually just leave a message. Hi, this is my illustration you're using. Would you mind crediting and tagging me in the picture? And they usually do. It's not an issue. Sometimes I'll just report it to Instagram. And then
does much happen?
yes, the post will just get taken down.
Okay.
Which I don't know whether the person gets a notification or not. But most of the time, people will just credit you.
So it's just a case of communication, reaching out. I mean, same thing for me on YouTube. When I've had people, like I've had big channels, like much big. I think that's the thing that riles me, is like copy, like take a chunk out and then put it in theirs, and then they're getting all the hits, and it's like, oh man. And it's very difficult. It's hard enough, as you know, competing with people who have huge budgets for ads and massive teams, and you're just one person. But I've usually found if I email them, they'll put it down. YouTube is a bit different in that you can report it and they'll get a notification to remove it without them getting a strike on their account. So that works really, really well. And coming back to like the life of a creative person, like selling stuff, what are some of the things that you wish you'd known when you started?
I don't know. There's a lot. But I think a business is always going to be a working process. And I think you have to make your own mistakes to learn. So I wish somebody had advised me, like in the beginning when I used to order cards, for example, I ordered them in bulks of 500 because that was the company's minimum order. So I was stuck with a ton of cards when I rebranded. So yeah, I wish somebody, just little things like, why don't you try this in smaller quantities and see how it works? But I think it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think you have to learn as you go along what works for you and what's best for your business, and make your mistakes. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. But it doesn't make you learn.
Yeah, like I totally agree with you. One of the things I've been thinking about this week is if you want to increase your rate of success, like double your rate of failure. Because really all failure is, like, let's say you make an Instagram illustration and it's something way different, like you use a new color or a new font or something, and it gets lower than usual engagement. That might seem like a failure compared to what you normally do, but that's where you get to learn the most. If you're doing the same stuff over and over again, you're not really getting any new information. If I create a new style of content, a new video, I try and speak in a different way, I use different music or different length, I'm finding out more about what is really going to resonate with people, what I like, what I enjoy, what works for me. One of the things I can't remember where I was listening. I think I was talking to Raphael about this. And I was asking him the same thing, like, how do you make some of your decisions about what you do and what you don't do? And you're saying, yeah, it's simple. I just ask myself, like, does it spark joy? And if it does, I do it. And if it's heavy, I just let it go. And we spoke about that a lot in the last episode. That, yeah, like failure is such a key part. One of my favorite quotes is fail early, fail fast, and fail often. Like, because that way you're learning exponentially. And I think one of the things that we do when we do workshops for Revolution Hive in schools is try and explain to young people that you're getting graded, and that can suck sometimes if you don't get the result you want. But just remember that every time that you're not getting it right, that's just another method that you've worked out doesn't work. So now you have less failures to go through. Like, don't see it as success or failure. See failure as the way to success, rather than you're trying to avoid failure and only get success in things that you're doing.
And I think it's not always, I think it's learning process as well throughout that, because if you don't fail, you're not going to learn. You're not going to learn what works, what doesn't work.
And I don't know about you, but I definitely think that in our culture, in our community, those of us who come from South Asian backgrounds, and outside that too probably, but we definitely have this thing of, taking the safe option. Like it's crazy to take a risk. And I have a lot of friends who, like they're in their 30s now, and they've had ideas for businesses, or they've admired what I do for a long time. But I've known that, like, I know you have something you want to do as well. So like, go for it, man, because you don't just have to be a lawyer. You don't just have to be a solicitor. You don't just have to follow a traditional path. Like, go make your own. And that requires a lot of courage.
It does. And I think my parents see that with me, because they always wanted me to do something like be a nurse or do something in IT, but I was never good at those things. But I think now the more they see my business grow, the more they want to be involved. And, my dad gets really angry when he sees people, copying my work. And if I tell him something, so I have to not tell him anymore. Because he gets so angry.
That's so sweet.
But they're actually quite interested in what I do. So yeah, it's nice. But then there's boundaries where you can go, because obviously I do the Asian wedding cards, but because my mum and dad help me pack cards sometimes. And I had I do the gay and mixed marriage wedding cards. And my dad was like, "Oh, what's this?" "Dad, it's for gay weddings." And it's just, obviously we have to look at diversity and things, it happens, nothing wrong with it. But I think he was a bit like taken aback. He didn't expect me to do that kind of work. So yeah, it was just one of those moments that me and my dad had, like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm. And have you found like
different to him?
Were they quite supportive, skeptical, curious in the beginning, or has that changed over time?
About the wedding cards, or
just generally about what you're doing? Because it's you're not going into hospital as a nurse, are you?
No. Well, I probably could do that. I'd probably cheer everybody up.
Well, my mom still asks me if I want to become a maths teacher, and I'm like, I didn't study maths at A level, so no.
Oh, see, I wanted to be a teacher because I just wanted everybody to put their hand up like little kids and say, "Hi, Miss Mistry." But no, I did youth work at uni as well as part of my degree, and I really enjoyed it. But I think it's just one of those things where I'd get too attached to the kids and I'd be like, "Don't go home." I'd get too emotionally attached. It's not a good thing.
So yeah, going back to our question before I digressed. Has it always been that supportive? Has that changed over time?
Yeah, they see how well I'm doing now, even though it's not bringing me loads of money to kind of live off and stuff. They see that I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I don't think they quite fully understand what goes into a business, like all the behind the scenes. Because my mum will always say to me, "Do what you're doing and then come home." But I don't think she realises sometimes that there's always something to be done when you have a business. There's always, something you can update or something that that's can be done.
Do you find it difficult to switch off? Because I know I definitely do.
Yes.
Which is an important thing, like even in terms of creativity. Sometimes, I have a long drive to do and I'm like, oh man, I really could have done this work. But actually, I have the long drive and I come out of it with like 10 ideas. And I'm like, I need to do this more often. Just go for a long walk or do nothing for a bit and allow those ideas to come to the forefront.
Yeah, I think sometimes just not working can give you ideas. Doing something different, like you said, going for a walk, watching a film, just doing something that's not working can kind of spark new ideas and new thoughts of new ways of doing things, or
Absolutely. I think we like hustle is everyone's favorite word right now, but I think taking that time out just to pause and make sure that we're being mindful in what we do. Even if you love what you do, you can have days where like we were talking about, you feel lazy or you kind of feel a bit lost or confused. So one of the things that I also wanted to ask you is like, where do you see yourself going next? What are some of the main challenges you face now? And what are some of your goals going forward?
Shall I be honest?
Absolutely.
I don't have a plan. No, I don't really have a plan, but there's things that I'd like to achieve. I should really set proper goals for myself, but I tend to kind of have scribbles and notes of where I want to be, whether it be introducing new products. But in terms of where I'd like the business to be, this year I want to concentrate on doing more events. So because I work full time, it's also difficult to kind of see where the business is going to go or where I want it to be, because it's always like I've still got to pay bills. You know, that's always in the back of my mind. And I couldn't quit my full-time job to do this because it's not going to pay my bills. Because even though I've got a lot of followers, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody with a lot of followers makes a lot of money. I enjoy what I do, and I hope other people do. But it's just baby steps for me, and I've done it all slowly over a good couple of years, and I found that trying to go into high street shops and bigger shops, it just wasn't working. So I kind of gave up, because it's disheartening getting emails from people saying, no, it's too niche. But I enjoy what I do. I love what I do.
I know a good band shop in Kingsbury that might stock your stuff. So shout out to what are they called? We're always there. I can't remember the name, but I think there's some really important things you said there that I just want to tease out a little bit more for everyone listening. So one of them was, sometimes it's like goals are important, and it is important to have a written plan. But at the same time, I think what's more important is what you said earlier, which is having that spirit and having that enjoyment factor from what you're doing. The second thing that I've learned from you today and that you've shared with us is doing what the work requires. So yeah, it's not like sexy and fun to have a full-time job making like designs for this random company, but it pays the bills. And if that's what you have to do to start your business or to start the thing you find you're passionate about, to whatever it is, whatever your thing is, go and do that. Like, don't make excuses, just make adjustments, find options to make it work for you, so that you don't have to create art from a place of scarcity, but from a place of security, where all right, my bills are paid, and now I've got that period between 5 to 9 p.m. where I can play, I can make random doodles, I can do whatever I want, and that will carry you forward. And if it takes a while, that's totally fine. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks a lot about having micro speed, so on a day-to-day basis, but macro patience over the long term. And I can see that's true of you as well. And one of the other things that I see that I've noticed that you've talked about a lot is like having your own process and doing things your way without like trying to look over because everyone does it, right? I do it too. You look at someone and you think, like maybe I need to do things that way, or maybe I need to set a goal, or maybe I need to change my way of working. But like, to everyone listening, if it's working for you, like, why try and fix it if it's not broken? Don't look at what other people are doing. And I think the final thing that you said is really powerful, is like, followers doesn't mean anything. And somebody can have a nice feed, but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and you don't know where they're at. But the main thing for you to focus on is like, am I getting enjoyment out of this? Like, is this helping me to live my meaningful life that builds my purpose? And that's a really important distinction that I mentioned in the Insight course on purpose that I released last week, that you don't follow your passion, you build it. You don't find your calling, you build it step by step, with each post, with each illustration, with each day that you're working at that job. So focus on those things and the rest will take care of itself. And like one of the most powerful things that you've talked about that I really love is like the importance of like doing cards your way. So you want to share our culture. You want to talk about the things that are our roots, because frankly speaking, most of us in our generation, we've lost that, or we've tried to dilute it down to try and fit into a box that isn't really ours and we didn't create and doesn't really serve us. So why not, do what Planet Parlay has done and make comedy videos about Ras Garba, or why not make funny coasters about samosa and chutney? Because there's a market out there for everything, and there's someone out there. So, it reminds me of another quote. Those with eyes to see and ears to listen, they will respond. So just do your thing, and the right people will come find you. Like
definitely,
So
definitely.
like thank you so much for like spending your Saturday evening with me today. I really appreciate your really valuable time. I've had a lot of fun speaking to you today. So just one more time, like for anyone who's listening and they want to go follow you. Number one, I say this on every podcast. Dina has given us like an hour of her time. So what is the best way for all of us to repay you and to support you?
Just enjoy what I do. You don't have to buy it. It's not selling anything.
I'm going to go buy go buy
share it with your friends and family. Just tell them where you found it.
Make them credit.
Just make somebody smile.
I love it. Such a simple and clear philosophy. And where can people find your social media and website? I know we shared already, but just one more time.
Instagram is probably the best place to find me, which is at the Playful Indian. And the website is www.theplayfulindian.com.
Awesome. So
I am on Facebook and Twitter as well, which is the Playful Indian.
I will definitely send you some pictures because I'm going to buy some cards soon to share with my family. I really like buying quirky cards that stand out. So keep doing what you're doing. Thanks again for your time and for what you do. And for everyone listening, let us know in the comments below, what you've learned today from this conversation and the most meaningful moment from everything that we've discussed. And until then, we'll speak to you next time in the next episode of the Lost in Life podcast. So until then, peace.